Hello and welcome to episode 262 of Retro Encounter, RPG Fans' weekly podcast of many topics. I'm Mike Sollosi, and together we're not reporting to you as Retro Encounter, we are Team EMP. So first, the P to my M, Peter Triezenberg.
It's showtime, folks.
And the E to my me, Eva Padilla.
What can I do for you?
Oh, man. The most appropriate response possible, Eva, because Final Fantasy X-2 is the game of the month this month. We're doing 2 episodes on FF10-2 today and next week, unless something unexpected happens. And Final Fantasy X-2 opens with a pop song with the English phrase, "What can I do for you?" said many, many times.
I can hear you.
And I can hear you, Peter, and if I hear you do that too much longer, then this is going to be the shortest episode in Retro Encounter history.
Wouldn't have it any other way. Hey, I'm not lying. That soundtrack was a bop.
Yeah, Final Fantasy X-2 is the sequel to Final Fantasy X. Final Fantasy X is a mostly traditional Final Fantasy game. FF is always sort of experimental within its own series. And FF10 was a early PlayStation game that was very beautiful, had these sort of early PS2 models, and was a story about a group of people going on a pilgrimage to save the world, and that asked questions about sacrifice and religious dogma and a lot of interesting themes. FF10 is a very well-liked game, and its sequel opens with a stage pop song, and then a bunch of, a Charlie's Angels mission, and Charlie's Angels poses. I've mentioned Charlie's Angels many times over the last month or two in podcasts, sometimes coincidentally, but today very on purpose, because Final Fantasy X-2 is a slightly unusual, all female women on a mission game that I'm going to say it outright. I'm not sure why this game exists, but it sure is a video game.
It is audacious. Let's put it that way.
Audacious, and you had the nerve to make this.
Yeah, multiple times. I should mention I'm early in Chapter 3. I played through the first 2 chapters over the past 2 or 2.5 weeks, tearing myself away from my Switch and Hades to play this weird thing, and multiple times playing it, I put down the controller and just think and said out loud, "Why are they making me do this?" It's such a weird thing.
I can't remember when is the massage minigame.
Right near the end of Chapter 2 in the Guado Salam Manor mission. I did that less than 48 hours ago.
You're just sitting there like why?
Yeah.
Are we getting a little ahead of ourselves? Maybe a bit.
We are, but let's back it up a little bit. Final Fantasy X, not X-2, is a game that is well known to all of us, as it was the second game that Retro Encounter ever covered. Retro Encounter, I believe, debuted in May of 2015, and Final Fantasy X were the June 2015 episodes. And
this has been a long time coming.
Yeah, so it's been over 5 years since we played that one. And I was playing Final Fantasy X for the second time. I played it over a decade earlier and sort of didn't like it. I was not a big FF10 fan, but I did play it in the early 2000s. But playing it again for the podcast had me appreciate it a little more. It's like, okay, I was mad about the linearity and parts of the sphere grid, but I didn't appreciate how beautiful this game is and how it has a couple themes that it stays tight with. And this is a good RPG. I'm not an FF10 super fan, but it's good. And I still, even though I enjoy it, I still have trouble justifying Final Fantasy X too. So, Peter, I know you're a big FF10 fan, and you were on those 2015 episodes with me.
I was.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about your background with FF10 and X-2.
I've been on this podcast long enough that people probably know 10 is one of my favorite Final Fantasies. I really love it. It was one of the first ones I finished. I love the setting, I love its themes, and I love its characters. So how do I feel about 10-2? A sequel which does its best to separate itself from the pack. I don't hate it. I think it's a fun video game with a pretty good combat system and a pretty good job system. And some kernels of good ideas in the narrative sprinkled here and there. And I think at the time when I first played this like back to back with the original 10. I was very tired of Spira after those couple weeks, let me tell you. And at the time I think I was thrown for a loop playing it back to back. Playing it in isolation now, I'm like a little more receptive to it. I think it's like, okay, this is silly, but I'm having an okay time. And there is a lot going on that I could see people diving into.
Yeah, I'm definitely also playing this with the benefit of distance and hindsight. This game came out in 2003, and I did not play it when it came out. This is my first time playing it past the first hour. I bought the HD remaster of Final Fantasy X and X-2. I'm not exactly sure when, in the early 2010s, within a year of it coming out. I'd have to look up exactly when
it came out in 2013, I'm pretty sure, because I think I bought it sophomore year of college.
All right, yeah, that sounds about right. I probably bought it in 2014, and I used that PS3 copy to play FF10 for the podcast 5 years ago, and I dusted off the old PS3 to play FF10-2 for the podcast because I didn't want to buy this again if I couldn't help it, and I had to go through something like 15 full minutes of updates on the PS3 to have this going, because the last time I had used the PS3 for something was playing Kingdom Hearts on it in early 2019 for this podcast. It had been a while. But Eva, tell us a little bit about your background with FF10 and FF10-2. I know you haven't been playing Final Fantasy for quite as long as Retro Encounter has been existing.
Yeah, so I was like aware of this game when I was a kid. Like I had seen the cover and such, and like maybe had seen friends playing it a couple of times, but never engaged with it until late 2018. It was the second Final Fantasy game I had ever tried to play after trying Final Fantasy 13 3 times. I've since tried that a fourth time and didn't go through with it again. I dropped it that time after about 10 hours. I picked it back up in December of 2019, at least FF10. I really liked it. I really love the battle system in 10. I mean, just a really, really good turn-based system that has a great usage of character roles through the Sphere grid. And I like the story. I love Yuna a lot. And I had never played 10-2 before, up until playing it for the show. And I love the opening scene. I love some of the designs. And the combat can be quite snappy and interesting. But we'll go into more of the things that I'm not too fond of about it.
Yeah, and I want to talk about some of the basics of gameplay before we go through the story, because we'll at least go through the first two chapters, and we can talk about the overall themes and the ending of the story in part 2 of the podcast. But this game is sometimes a step forward, sometimes a step backward, and sometimes a step to the side. If you consider it a follow up to Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy X had a really elegant, very communicative turn-based battle system that had, speed stats and initiative positions on that sort of turn-ordered thing, but was not an active time battle system. Final Fantasy X-2 goes backward. It's like Final Fantasy IX. It has an ATB system with meters and active and wait modes, and there's no difficulty setting, but you can basically turn enemy actions to fast to make it way harder.
Oh, I've seen people compare 10-2's battle system to Grandia. Not in that there's a combo system if you can line up multiple attacks. So they try to add this element of strategy to the active time battle system, but I don't think it ever really impacts anything.
That's not why it would be compared to Grandia. Grandia has sort of a meter with everyone traveling alongside it in turn order, and the final segment of the meter is when people are casting their spells or preparing their attacks. If you hit an enemy with a stun or a delay attack when they're charging, they get knocked back into the meter. And you can manipulate turn order and manipulate the enemy taking action very easily. And Final Fantasy X-2 has something like that, where you can get knocked out of casting or knocked out of preparing an attack somewhat easily, and you can do the same thing for enemies if you use a delay skill or a very fast charge skill while they're preparing an attack. But it's not represented on a meter the way it is very clearly in Grandia and Grandia 2. But it's basically a classic Final Fantasy ATB, but with a class system that is a little bit like a Final Fantasy Tactics, because you're leveling up jobs, but you can choose which order you invest skills in. It's not quite the same as a job system that has set upgrades with every job level increase, like Final Fantasy V. But they keep the Final Fantasy Sphere grid in garment grids, which are equipable items that basically present each character with the array of jobs they have access to, and gives them bonuses and extra skills sometimes if you change jobs mid-battle. And changing jobs mid-battle is not something that's typical of Final Fantasy. So it's weirdly like an old FF and like FF10 and not like anything we've seen before, and it just has so many unusual visual choices that are kind of like more extreme versions of what FF10 was. I am from the very moment where Yuna is a pop star singing on stage in Luca, then she escapes with something, and then she's stopped by Riku, a new character named Pain, and another Yuna, because the stage Yuna was an imposter. So it's almost like a heist, like you're foiling someone else's heist mission, and the reward is the sphere that this new character used to turn into a likeness of Yuna, and that gives Yuna, or that gives your whole party, songstress powers. So you basically stop an imposter pop idol and gain pop idol powers as a result in the first 30 minutes of the game.
Not even, like, first 10 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
It's like, it is a reach coming off of 10, which was, for the most part, pretty somber. 10-2 is almost immediately a refutation of 10's solemnity. Like, even just how Yuna goes from wearing her old costume, like it's the imposter, but the audience is not supposed to know that yet. How she goes from wearing her old kimono into the new, like, sexy, air quotes sexy, songstress garb. It's like, it really is kind of a mission statement, like, right out of the gate.
Yeah, this is not the demure priestess Yuna. This is a sassy new pop idol Yuna, singing in Final Fantasy X was a ritual to send the souls of the dead to safely to the afterlife, and now singing is something that Yuna does in Final Fantasy II to celebrate and to be a pop star, I guess, because the presumption is they solved the problem in FF10. The world is no longer being terrorized by a monster called Sin, and they're in a time that is being referred to as the Eternal Calm. So, like the Spira, the world of FF10, is no longer dangerous in that way. But Yuna has retired from her role as a summoner and did not want to have a leadership role in sort of the religious order that dominates most of Spira, because for many, many reasons that order had lost the trust of the populace over the course of FF10, and now is a sphere hunter. So she's flying around on a big ship with Riku and Pain and a few other characters looking for spheres, which are records of the past, almost like videotapes that contain memories, sometimes powers. There's a lot of sphere collecting in FF10 as well. But in FF10 too, you're mostly looking for spheres as relics of the past.
And the inciting incident is Yuna is found a sphere of a character that looks a lot like Tidus, the protagonist from 10, and her boyfriend who disappeared at the end of the game. So that's like our quote unquote our mission in the old is to find out what that's about.
Do any of us care that much about what's happening to him?
No, I don't.
I like Tidus. I don't really love Shuyan.
I don't think it's Tidus. Oh, so his name is Shuyan. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Spoiler alert.
It's fine. But
you're like right there anyway.
I didn't think it was Tidus because his shorts are evenly sized. Mostly,
he has a slightly different design, and his voice, especially during a couple of the Sphere recordings, is very different. Like I think they may have gotten James Arnold Taylor to do a couple lines. But,
the famous voice actor of Ratchet from Ratchet and Clank, of course. Mm-hmm.
but yeah, it is a different character whose story we are going to talk about in the next episode. But I do think that's one of the better parts of the game. I also really like the dichotomy between New Yevon, the remains of the old religious order from 10, and the Youth League. There is, a kernel of a theme of an idea that is like, we're picking up the pieces of our world and trying to figure out where to go from here. And a big part of that involves the control of information and what we do with these relics of the past. I'm not sure it goes anywhere with that, but it's definitely there.
It doesn't go anywhere at all. It's Yuna decided to be a sphere hunter, and when you have control of where you can go in the game, it's basically, hey, we got some readings of some spheres. Now visit anywhere you want in Final Fantasy X, but these 3 places are the places with spheres.
Because it's like kind of an open world game, but not really. Where you just open up your menu and it's like, sure. Here is the entire world of Spira from the word go.
Yeah, I feel like this game has a major problem with like signposting. Because yes. If I'm not consulting a guide, I feel like I don't know where the heck I'm going a lot of the time. You know, if you just go by what's a hotspot, it's like, okay, if I go by what's a hotspot, that should make sense. But no, if you try to go to Guadasalam early in Chapter 2, when it says hotspot, you actually need to go to 3 places before that.
That are not marked.
Exactly, right.
It's weird. They tell you the signposting for where the next major plot elements take place with these yellow marks, but then they break their own rules. And then the underlying idea is they don't actually want you to go there. They want you to re-explore every location from Final Fantasy X at each chapter.
So
because,
many recycled assets.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to pretend that this is as easy as copy-paste. It isn't. That video game development is not like that. But they do reuse large parts of the environments and art assets from Final Fantasy X here. But they do so in a way like in Final Fantasy X, you were visiting each region in a linear fashion. In 10-2, you have most of the world mapped from the very beginning, and there's this underlying idea, you should try and go for 100% completion. Because whenever I looked up anything about this game, there was 100% guide. Choose this if you want 100%. Here's 100%. And there's a percentage marker in the menu when you're playing the game, but it's not very well communicated what increases it and what doesn't.
No, I'm pretty sure it is impossible to do on a first playthrough, because this game does have a New Game Plus, and there is a binary choice at the beginning of Chapter 2 that locks out some side content, but not all of the side content.
When I was looking it up, they said that you can get 100% on their first playthrough, and you have to pick the Youth League if you at the beginning of Chapter 2 if you're going for that on your first playthrough. But it's so ultra specific because there is like the final Dressphere and a special ending if you beat the game with a 100% rating, and it's so obnoxiously checklisty without really showing you the full checklist that I was annoyed. I'm playing this game and I want to experience most of it. Because I'm going to podcast about it for 2 episodes, but it's like, am I supposed to try and do every side quest? Do they want me to do every side quest? Because I just spent 30 minutes chasing a chocobo up and down a path. Well, when the solution was to run away from it, and I hated everything about it because but basically this game takes place in 5 chapters, and each chapter has new activities or new dialogue at each of the major locations, and a lot of them have new side quests or new mini games or new characters to interact with, but a lot of it is just not interesting. I spent over an hour calibrating lightning towers a few nights ago in chapter 2 because I heard that if you did all 10 of them that you would get a ribbon in chapter 4 or 5, and I'm like, well, I know what a ribbon is in Final Fantasy. Those are really good. And I managed to do, I think, 8 of them, but the last 2, I just gave up. It's like I'll take the second place prize for doing the first 5. Thanks. I am dangerously close to just mainlining the rest of this game because I am so annoyed at. I don't know if I like it. I don't know if I like any of these mini games.
10-2 has a lot of junk. And I can see a certain subset of the RPG community really enjoying that. I know a friend of mine who is a really big fan of this game because he likes to go for 100% completion. He likes to have kind of... it harkens back to an earlier time in RPG design when games were allowed to have secrets and mysteries, but it goes overboard in that direction. Like, I'm sorry, there's a major side quest involving... several red spheres that unlocks a optional dungeon that is connected to the main villain's story. That is the impetus for this quest line isn't till chapter 2, but it is impossible to complete unless you went there in chapter 1 unprompted, and that drives me insane.
Yeah, I don't mind games being a little obtuse or hiding secrets. It's just I don't think these are very interesting secrets, and
most of them aren't. But the whole optional dungeon that ties into the villain's backstory is something I would have liked to see. If I had had multiple saves and save scummed like crazy, it's just that bothers me. Most of it, like I agree, like the chocobo hunting, the lightning calibration. Sphere break. God, that minigame is not good.
It kind of seems like how everyone talks about The Witcher 3, where they're saying, oh, every side quest leads to another thing. It's another interesting story beat with an interesting theme that wasn't explained in the main story or something. And this is like the opposite of it, where you still have like these things, this sort of branching that occurs, but none of it, at least to me, is interesting. And I'm with you on this, Sollosi, that I'm just going to try to level up as well as I can to make it through the story and just kind of go through it. I feel like I've gotten what this game is kind of going for. I get it, and I like some of the things that it's doing. As someone who was previously in a more kind of direct role in community organizing and politics, who went and focused more on music, I get it. But
this is your JRPG origin story.
Right. Go off and be a songstress. If only I was more religious, it would have been perfect. But it was like that opening scene was like, oh, I'm really excited to be playing FF10-2. Heck yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. And it's just kind of gone downhill.
Pretty much the second you see LeBlanc's plunging V-neck.
Yeah, LeBlanc is the woman who was disguised as Yuna at the first scene of the game. She's a rival sphere hunter, and she has 2, real Salt and Pepper, Tweedledee and Tweedledum sidekicks who are
awful.
Not my favorite sidekicks, but this game just wants you to re-explore every corner of Spira And but the problem is, I think there isn't a lot that's that interesting to re-explore. It's trading on Final Fantasy X nostalgia, which is fine. This is a sequel. It says Final Fantasy X-2 right in the title. But is it worth it? Going to Thunder Plains and recalibrating 10 towers with 10 fairly challenging timing minigames, or going back to Luca and playing this a number puzzle game for a long time to get certain rewards. I've played a little bit of Sphere Break, and I kind of don't hate this one. I kind of like that. I like number games. This reminds me of playing 24, or sometimes called Catch 24 in elementary school, which was a math card game that was I guess had a bit of run of popularity in the 90s. But it feels like empty calories. They want to fill this game with side quests and recontextualization, and it rarely works. One of the better scenes in Chapter 1 is going back to Besaid and speaking with Waka and Lulu again. Waka has some anxiety because he's about to be a dad, and Lulu looks amazing for being 7 months pregnant.
It's the same character model, and she's still wearing a corset.
Yeah, she's still wearing a corset made of belts and a truly insane décolletage. But she is with child somehow and still looking the same. And Waka leads you to an area where he knows an old sphere is hidden, but he doesn't want to see the video that's on it because he thinks it might. He thinks his parents might be on there, and he doesn't want to change the memory of his parents from when they died, protecting him and his brother from a sin attack as a child. And it's like, that was an interesting part of Waka's character in FF10. This is an appropriate context in FF10 too. And they brought back John DiMaggio to voice Waka in English again. This was a pretty good Waka moment, but that's like the only. Like that and the opening scene are like the only interesting parts in Chapter 1. When you go and meet the Gullwings on their airship, the Celsius, for the first time, you have a truly infuriating child named Shinra, a pretty normal-seeming dude named Buddy, and then Riku's brother, appropriately named Brother, doing his best impersonation of Dan Aykroyd as the Czechoslovakian wild and crazy guy.
Oh my! I didn't think about that, and now I will never be able to unhear it.
It almost feels a little racist how buffoonish he acts with his broken language and truly bizarre enthusiasm and thirst for everything Yuna.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm pretty sure he was in 10, but even then the Albed weren't as caricaturish as this guy was.
All of the Albed turn into symbol monkeys, except for the Machine faction, which is the faction I secretly wanted to join instead of all those assholes in the Youth League in New Yevon.
Same.
There's Nuge and his
Nuge and his terrible hair and clothes, and Barreleye with his much better hair, but a religious creepiness that I didn't enjoy. Like I didn't want to choose a faction. It's like, do I have to side with either of these jerks?
Meanwhile, Jipple is just chill.
and also the Ronso out there doing their Ronso thing, separate from all of this. Good for them. And oh man, the Guados. One of the sadder moments of the game is all the Guados are in hiding in Macalania because the remnants of the Youth League and all of the Ronsos want to kill the Guados for almost taking over the world in a coup involving Seymour, their sort of summoner / despot.
Yeah, I mean, and those moments like that are like some of the few moments in the game that are actually like, oh look, we're exploring consequences and what happens after all this. That's interesting. I want more of that.
Yeah, like talking to the sad Guado mayor and talking to Waka again. Those moments are pretty good, but they're so few and far between because the rest of the game feels so empty. And I mean, this is like 20 side quests in search of a main quest.
You have invoked the name of Mevin Nuge. We have to, on the whole, we have to talk about the fashion. Because he is the crux of, there are some, I'm not the most fashionable person in the world, but I do like fashion. It is an interest. Some of these things, some of these designs and some of these fashion choices actually make me angry. Like, they're just like, some of them I like Pain's design. I like the base designs for Pain, Yuna, and Riku.
Little unsure about Riku's, but
yeah, Riku's wearing a bikini top and a thong, which seems a little inappropriate. But then you go around, it's like, oh, everybody was wearing thongs. Like half of the Albed women are just in thongs, and there's even a side quest where you steal the clothes of 3 women, and two of those 3 times you see someone running away wearing only a thong. It's like,
yeah, I don't know what it is with this world and thongs, but it's
I mean, either.
Like it's in terms of LeBlanc's design and Nuge's.
Do you think Nuge is wearing a thong under all that?
I'm sure he's wearing a thong under that. And hey, I'm not a thong hater. I don't know how to word that non-weirdly, but a lot of these designs are just so much, and I'm not someone who dislikes Tetsuya Nomura's character designs generally. Like, I even like some of the stuff from the Bouncer, but these ones are just too much in a lot of cases, and I think it negatively impacts the game for me with the Dressphere system, because I don't like a lot of the Dresspheres at just how they look visually.
I like a lot of them. I like Yuna's warrior design in that she has the Brotherhood, Tidus' sword. I like how they all have their own unique elements. That I think that's cool. It's not just the same costume for each of them.
The Samurai and Dark Knight Dresspheres, Yuna and Riku are both wearing, both use swords that were Oron swords in 10, and Pain has sort of her own new version of an FF10 Samurai sword for both, or heavy sword for both of them.
Yeah.
It's
it is worth getting the Dark Knight job class if you there's a puzzle in Bevel that's optional, but you can get it on the main story path. It's the best Dressphere in the game, IMHO.
It's very good. I'm early in chapter 3. I just got Samurai and Alchemist and have been using Dark Knight for maybe 90 minutes. With those 3, it's like, oh, I don't think I ever want to use any other Dressphere ever again, unless it's for white magic or something, because they're really kick-ass. I like the Dressphere system as jobs. I like having bonuses for switching jobs in battle. I like the gameplay design of a lot of them, maybe not all of them, but like these are interesting versions of like warrior, thief, white mage, black mage. White mage and black mage can't attack unless they're berserked. White mage gets a couple free weak heals if you don't want to cast a spell, and black mage has an MP absorb that they can use if they run out of MP, and so it's sort of it's giving every class something to do that's maybe a little bit more interesting than the FF5 versions of these classes, and that's cool. But just the visual design of everything is so weird. We talked about Nuge for a minute. He's the leader of the youth league faction, and he's wearing some kind of cloth bodysuit. I'm looking at an image right now. A shoulder pad on one arm, a giant like fur covering on the other arm, a metal claw on the arm that has a shoulder pad, a cane, and armor over just one thigh. And his hair is truly insane. He has sort of multiple dreads, then a complete comb over to one side, and then a giant ponytail that comes up like a lightning bolt, and then goes about 4.5 feet in front of him.
Honestly, it's probably the colors that upset me the most. Like these colors just they just don't go well in the proportions, and I'm looking at him right now and it feels like my eyes are lightly burning.
I hate his hair so much, but like the fashion choices are so weird in this game.
It's bad hair. The thing with the part of the thing with the Dresspheres though is that when I think about jobs in Final Fantasy, I'd assign them based on kind of how the personality, like how I think of a character's personality. And so I really haven't experimented with having characters really run through multiple ones. Like I have Riku using Black Mage a lot, but that's not Riku. That's a powerful Dressphere for now, but that doesn't feel like Riku to me. And like Thief and Festivalist do, but they're not as useful right now. And Pain, I just keep her as a warrior for right now.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Did you unlock the psychic job, which is not in PS2 FF10-2, but is in the remasters?
I have not unlocked that yet, but I'm planning to do so.
I unlocked it sort of early. One of the zillion side quests in this game is raising your own army of monsters. And you can sort of recruit monsters, level them up by feeding them items, and have them enter tournaments. And if you just win one tournament, which is just 3 matches in a row against monsters that are in the level 15 to 20 range, then you get the psychic job, Dressphere. It's weird. It's like they're trying to make a game that's more like a futuristic anime than what FF10 is. So they're Pain, Yuna, and Riku are dressed kind of like students, but with like weird shades and psychic powers, and they get passives that let them be immune to every damage type. But it takes a long time to master. I think it takes about like 500 AP to master Dark Knight and like 2,000 to master Psychic. It's something crazy. Yeah. But
man, you want to talk about weird modern / futuristic? Could we talk about the Yojimbo in Yuna's band at the beginning that's on drums?
Oh my god!
Yeah, the crazy drum set guy. It's like he's playing an entire set of taiko drums and like an electronic drum set, and spinning around in a circle because he has them surrounding him like marching band tenors, but just an entire hula hoop full of them.
It's like that's one of the first things you see in the game, and it's like, what?
It's literally it's
like I want to fight that guy.
It's Slipknot goes J-pop.
like the ghost of Neil Peart just came down and said, "This guy needs to settle down with his drum kit." Okay.
Look, man, if Corey Taylor was in this game, it would be like go up by 10% in my estimation.
But yeah, I mean, I think. This is one of the earlier glimpses I have as a casual fan of Japanese things and an enthusiastic fan of Japanese RPGs of sort of Japanese pop music in an RPG. I mean, Tales of Phantasia in 1995 had a pop vocal track opening the game, but actually having part of the plot be a pop singer and you get singer powers is a little uncommon. But only a couple years after this, we have things like Risei and Persona 4, and everything about Sakura Taisen 5. It's like, for some reason there is an intersection of J-pop and JRPGs that we're probably more used to now, but must have seemed even weirder in 2003. Right? Am I crazy? But this seems like an early example of J-pop celebration within a JRPG.
No, I don't think that's a wild thing to say. Especially, J-pop was not really celebrated much in the U.S. at that point. You know, they brought in at the time a pretty big pop star in Kumikoda, I think, to do Real Emotion for this game, and it's cool that there's that infusion of that, and there's influences from 70s funk in the soundtrack and everything. I was actually curious. Yeah. I was actually curious because Mike, you had played Tokyo Mirage Sessions earlier this year.
I did.
And how does kind of the J-pop influence in that compare to this?
It's much more present. Tokyo Mirage Sessions is a 2015 or 2016 game, and I played the Switch port of it earlier this year. That game is about the J-pop industry. You work every playable character in this game works at the same talent agency. A couple of them are trying to be actors. A couple of them are trying to be pop stars, and one of them is sort of the main character is sort of the manager of everyone else. So and you even unlock performances for special attacks. The monsters in the game are a little bit like Persona Shadows, but instead of draining someone's life force, they drain people's performa, which is someone's creativity and sort of wish to perform. So it's a game that's sort of about J-pop excess and exuberance. But Final Fantasy X-2 just has J-pop as these weird plot points, and I hope I'm right with the timing on this. I think FF10-2 came out after Kingdom Hearts 1, before Kingdom Hearts 2, and both Kingdom Hearts games... Yeah, beg pardon?
Yeah, you're correct.
Oh, okay. And both Kingdom Hearts games have these really iconic pop song openings that made me wonder if around the early 2000s, Square executives or Square Enix people were thinking, I think there's a real intersection of fans of JRPGs and fans of J-pop. Let's try to bring J-pop into JRPGs a little bit. And so these 3 games are just an early example of this. Like it's not like the Persona. Like Persona 4, you have a pop star in the main cast. Tokyo Mirage Sessions is to a degree about pop music. Both of those are Atlas games, and maybe that has something to do with it as well. There's a whole pop star subquest in Yakuza 5, which came out in I think 2015 or 2016. There's J-pop is a part of JRPGs and a lot of Japanese games now, whether you want to avoid it or not. But it just feels out of place for how mostly normal and serious Final Fantasy X was to what Final Fantasy X-2 is. But to a degree, I don't mind it. Like having the songstress Dressphere where you can distract enemies or boost your allies with singing and dancing, that's fine. It's like, yeah, okay, tell me what this song and this dance does, and I can choose how to level up my character. I love this. But it's just, it was just a weird moment seeing all the J-pop in FF10-2 infused with a job system that I think is mostly pretty good. Like I think there's I looked this up yesterday, but I think there's 14 Dresspheres normally, then 2 that they added for the remastered version, which is my biggest complaint with the job system is I'd like a little more. Like Final Fantasy V has 22 jobs, Bravely Default and Bravely Second have 24 and 30. I sort of would like to break into 20, so I would have magic damage options other than Black Mage and Festivalist.
Yeah.
Even though throwing out Goldfish is very fun as a Festivalist. And having characters with psychic in the psychic costumes floating in the air and then adjusting their sunglasses while lounging in midair as a victory sequences, that's pretty good.
Some of the victory quotes are pretty funny. I find it funny that Riku says like fire burn and cauldron bubble whenever she turns into a black mage. I'm like, does Macbeth exist in Spira?
Oh, totally. You know that like Macbeth is just he's just gonna look like Noosh or something. Like, just imagine that together.
What?
Oh my god!
What does the Albed theater scene look like?
Oh man,
it's Noosh, but he has like Michael Fassbender's face.
Oh god, I don't like that.
I don't want to see Noosh compared with anyone. I want Noosh to stay in this game and never come out because the fashion choices are so weird. But it's
I think your point about this game's kind of being on the cusp of a new wave of J-pop influenced JRPGs is not is warranted. It is. I also think it's also kind of a lineage of starting from Final Fantasy VIII. They kind of had a vocal theme in every Final Fantasy. Eyes on Me. The one from Final Fantasy IX, which is really good, but I'm blanking on the name at the moment.
Melodies of Life?
That's it. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, thank you. 10 even had Sudeki Dane, Isn't It Wonderful, which is not, I mean, it is kind of a pop song. It's more orchestral, and it's meant to be like, it plays during a very emotional scene.
But it's still a crucial vocal theme.
Yes, whereas here, What Can I Do For You, or that main song is pretty, I mean, it's definitely like, it catches your attention, and it's definitely bold, but it doesn't seem to have much story relevance. There is a second concert scene. I'm getting a little ahead of ourselves, but I want to reassure you guys.
That's cool. It's more interesting than within the other stuff going on in the story.
It is. 1,000 Words, the second one, is a very good song and one of my favorite scenes in the game. So I will actually go to bat for that when we come back next time. But
let's hit some of the story points while we're talking about the future a little bit. In Chapter 1, they just start out looking for spheres. You're encouraged / not told to do side quests. because you have this ominous completion percentage hanging over your head. But
you go back to Zanarkand Ruins and it's been turned into a tourist trap. I think that's actually kind of interesting,
that
too.
is interesting.
Poor Isaru embarrassing himself trying to like turn the Cloister of Trials area where you fought Yunalesca into like a haunted house.
It's like, hey, this is where we killed God and
you didn't kill God. You killed Lady Jesus.
This is where we killed fem Jesus and uncovered the truth of our religious orthodoxy. Now it's like a haunted house attraction.
And there's a monkey naming or monkey gathering side quest.
It's not. It is monkey dating.
Monkey dating. Yeah, monkey. That's it. You're monkey matchmaking. Yeah, jeez. And I think you get a Soul of Thamasa if you do it. But when I was looking at a no spoiler guide listing the side quests, it's like, find 32 monkeys. Nope, moving on.
I am just not gonna ever do that ever.
Like I spent so long calibrating lightning towers in Chapter 2. It was like the first or second thing I did in Chapter 2. Just because of the way I was playing, and it exhausted me so much. I looked at all the other side quests and just decided I might do a quarter of these. I am not going to get 100% completion. I kind of want to get all of the jobs that I can. I know the final job is locked behind 100% completion, so that one's immediately not happening. But I think they do give you a new way to get it in the remaster version, but it's still a bunch of endgame craziness. But yeah, I found some of the side quests so exhausting. I'm basically going to keep checking this non-spoiler guide, and if the side quest is like 5 paragraphs and there's no Dressphere, I'll just skip it.
Yep, that's been my mode of operation as well. But there is the best mini game in the entire game, which is can you push 3 band members into an elevator?
Oh God! It's the elevator. I had to reset them twice because for some reason the skinny one can't fit beside the fat one.
Yes. Oh my God!
And you have to do the. Why? Oh my God!
And it's like the worst slippery controls ever.
Yeah, and this game has a fixed camera and a slightly, Iceman stage and Mega Man 1 controls. So getting around is not always easy. So mini games where you have to manipulate something or push something, which is that's not the only one, but it's an obnoxious early one, is just terrible. Like, why are they doing this to us?
It's so bad.
Nobody knows his name, so we just call him Barkeep. Have you considered asking his name?
Yeah, it's like high pillows really are second class citizens unless culturally they don't have names or something. Like they're
Yuna, you're half El Bed. I expected more of you.
Yeah, like they're Kunari in Dragon Age where they don't have names, just titles within their role in the tribe. That's more than I've ever thought about high pillows before. Other than ride as a shoe puff? Okay, you can't even ride as a shoe puff in this game. Ugh, 0 out of 10.
Disappointing.
But back to Chapter 1, they find readings on the locations of a couple spheres. One of the early spheres they find has this image of a man that looks like Tidus, which we mentioned earlier in the show. And eventually they find a reading for one in after the scene in Besaid with Waka and Lulu, and the scene in Zanarkand where you see the tourist trap version of the ruins. You go back to Kilika, which is where Ifrit was in Final Fantasy X-1. And the temple there, there's a bunch of Youth League people and a bunch of New Yevon people sort of facing off. The Youth League people demanding that the New Yevon people give up their sphere. And the crux of the conflict between them is that New Yevon wants to keep the old church around, but have new progressive leadership, while trying to hang on to some of the old, religious tradition of the old order, but with a new generation of leadership led by this guy Barreleye. While the Youth League are like, man, the church betrayed everyone. They were hiding information for us for centuries. They should give up all of the spheres they have and reveal all the truth of the past that's ever been to us.
There is a weird both sides-ism to tend to
Yes.
politics. That I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, but even calling your order New Yevon, like, guys, you spent 1,000 years gaslighting your entire nation about the Godzilla whale that shows up. I don't think any of you have a leg to stand on. But
also the youth league isn't exactly behaving that well either. They're New's just so creepy.
So New Yevon's list of sins include being connected to Yevon, suppressing information, holding on to stodgy old religious traditions, and the youth league's major sin is Nuge is in it.
I will say the politics are better than BioShock Infinite.
All right. I just wanted an option to join the Machine faction, who are basically mostly former Albed second-class citizens that were trying to reclaim ancient technology and use it to improve the lives of a populace that rejected technology for centuries. Like that is the organization I want to side with.
Yeah, they're actually like doing something useful.
Listen, I'm a person of simple delights. If you put machinists in a game, I'm going to want to be one of them, and I'm going to be upset if I can't. I mean, you can kind of be an alchemist, but like it's not the same.
Alchemist and Gun Mage are a little machinist, and weirdly, I think they're two of my favorite classes so far. Gun Mage, they have Blue Bullet, which is the same as Blue Magic from old Final Fantasy games, and also bullet skills that just deal a bunch of extra damage to specific monster types. So that they're good in random battles and get some really, really nice blue bullets. While Alchemist can use items without spending items. You have a long charge time instead. But those items, it takes a lot of AP, but those items can include mega potions and elixirs. So you can just get free elixir or free 2,000 heal to the whole party without spending MP if you level up Alchemist a little bit. Yeah. So yeah, I really like Alchemist and Blue Mage. And again, I mentioned how much I enjoy Samurai and Dark Knight. Those are maybe the four classes I'm the most excited to have around. But
yeah, I think mechanically we're all pretty, at least combat-wise and job system-wise, we're all pretty high on this game, I think.
The combat is normal. It feels like it feels like Final Fantasy IX, but a little bit faster moving and a little bit more stun locking. I just wish that a job system like this was in a better game. Like I wish it had 20 jobs instead of 16, and I wish that the game was actually interesting. Because I talked about sort of the Youth League and and New Yevon having a clash in Kilika. That's all of Chapter 1. It's just, here are 3 spheres. There's a conflict in Kilika, and bye. That's
What's on the awesome sphere, quote unquote, is a vision of, again, the same man who looks like Tidus, and a new Machina weapon that they ominously refer to as Vegnagun, which is the main crux of the conflict for the rest of the game. That is kind of a generic, like, okay, the bad guy has a doomsday weapon. We gotta go.
And it seems that New Yevon wanted to hide Vegnagun from everyone because they thought it would because again the Yevon Church was anti-machine for a long, long time.
And this is like the grandpappy of all death machines.
Yeah, and the Youth League wants Vegnagun, and it's revealed that Nuge is in league with LeBlanc. That's her name, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That just makes me think of a different RPG character's name, LeBlanc. But it looks like Nuge that wants Vegnagun for his own nefarious purposes, which we don't really know yet at the end of Chapter 2. And towards the end of Chapter 2, the Gullwings, our main characters, decide to infiltrate Bavel to dismantle Vegnagun or stop Vegnagun, or at least investigate what they saw on the different spheres. and they even temporarily team up with LeBlanc for part of the infiltration. And I think if you sided with the Youth League at the beginning of Chapter 2, you have to fight through a bunch of New Yevon soldiers. But if you do side with New Yevon over the Youth League, then there's no soldiers to fight at all. You just stroll in, and you don't fight any enemies until you get to like halfway down the dungeon.
Spoiler alert regarding Nuge. Communism was a red herring.
Okay, Wadsworth.
Yeah, it's definitely that's definitely the part where the plot starts to like that is kind of the main crux of the plot going forward is the back and forth over Vegnagun.
If someone's got bad fashion and uses communism for evil, you're dead to me. You're so dead to me.
Well, you'll see where it goes.
I have some ideas, but most of those ideas are drowned out by how much I hated that Bavel dungeon.
It's not good.
There's at the very beginning, you have to slide down a chain that's impossible to see and fight enemies in 6 robot towers. And if you go to the right 3 towers, you fight a boss and can go on to the rest of the dungeon. But if you want to get all the treasure that's around there, you have to fight that same boss 3 more times, then fight a second, more difficult boss 4 times, and then that'll unlock all the treasure in this weird camera-changing, hard-to-see-where-you-are robot tower thing. And then if you get to the bottom of the robot tower, whether you get all the treasure or not, there's the weird spider web of pistons minigame, which there's 3 or 4 treasure chests hiding behind pistons that go up and down, and you yell to Riku to step on the switch on and off to navigate around the pistons. Completely pointless. There's 2 pretty good accessories there. One that like turns you into a berserk monster, and one that turns you into a pure mage and like lowers your defense down to nothing, which is interesting from a customization of your character standpoint. But like it was such a miserable 2 set pieces within a dungeon that I was just ready to end it by then. And right after the pistons is some teleporting, moving platform puzzles. That's not very hard. That's where the Dark Knight Dressphere is, and you definitely want that thing. And then you fight Baralai, who is determined to keep anyone away from Vegnagun however possible. The only time I died in the whole game was against Baralai because he has an attack that puts stop on all of your characters. And yes. I didn't have any anti-stop stuff equipped, so he completely wrecked me. Then I fought him. I put anti-stop thing on one character and then completely wrecked him the second go around. So it was just me making some equipment mistakes. But then Vegnagun's gone. There's a giant hole there instead. And instead of encountering Vegnagun, because this is at the bottom of the faith pool of the Bavel Temple, it's not the same dungeon, but like basically directly above there is where you got Bahamut in Final Fantasy X. So you fight a weird ghost version of the Aeon Bahamut, because something's going on with the Aeons. Like the Faith and the Aeons, Faith spelled Fayth, which is a concept of collection of souls from Final Fantasy X. Like the Faith and the Aeons and the summons should be gone, but at the end of Chapter 2 you fight a weird Bahamut ghost, and now there are Aeons appearing again elsewhere in Spira at the beginning of Chapter 3. And I'm a couple early side quests into Chapter 3 is where I stopped playing. So that's a level, like everything about Vegnagun and the Youth League versus New Yevon and the stuff about Aeons, that's a level of intrigue that's not bad. But it's just, like I went over it and explained it in about 5 or 6 minutes. Like this is barely a plot thread, because the whole game is just weighed down by all of these side quests and side activity, and with the expectation that players are going to try and get 100% because they want to see the true ending of what happens to Yuna, or maybe even also Tidus. It's like I am mad at this game for having some good parts and weighing it down with so much unnecessary baggage that's gatekeeping players away from something they genuinely want to see.
Yeah,
I am so. I don't think this game is a trash fire. There's fun parts to it. I want to keep playing to level up Samurai and Dark Knight some more. But I really am annoyed at this bare bones story and the overabundance of boring side content. That's my thoughts. I'm sorry for ranting a little bit.
That's cool. I mean, I'm a little bit in a similar place. Part of it for me is that because I just played Final Fantasy X, 9-10 months ago. As you said, you don't just copy paste assets. That's not how games work. However, these are still very similar areas. These are still kind of the same locales, and
it's the same Mushroom Rock Road.
Yeah, it pretty much is. And there's just, so I've just seen all of this stuff already. Over 60 hours a few months ago. So I'm just not really that interested in seeing Spira right now, and in a way that is more open and what I think is more detrimental to its design. 10 is a linear game, and I think it works in that way. But opening up this design and having to retread ground or not being sure where you're supposed to go a lot of the time, it doesn't do it many favors.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair. For my money, I mean, I totally agree with you on the superfluousness of a lot of the side content. And I really do not like the lack of signposting. That's a pet peeve of mine in a lot of RPGs. I don't like the fact that I can accidentally miss a bunch of content. Especially, even if most of it is uninteresting in 10.2's case, there is some stuff that I feel like should be less sequestered off. Like that one dungeon with the Crimson Spheres. I do like some of the, like Mike said, a lot of these interesting points in the story. And, I mean, since I'm the one who's played this before, I'm not going to talk spoilers, but I will say that there are some moments later on that I do find effective. Which I think I've foreshadowed already. But that being said, 10.2 is definitely a very strange, very silly game in a lot of respects. And in some ways, it kind of begs the player not to take it too seriously. Pretty much from the word go, once you have Yuna in hot pants firing twin Glocks, the bar has shifted to a different kind of entertainment. Not necessarily a bad kind of entertainment. There is room in this world for pulp and schlock, but it is a drastic shift for the series at the time. Not only is this the first sequel in Final Fantasy history, this is also one of the first games to come out right after the Square Enix merger. I can only imagine how the fan base in 2003 was reacting to this.
Yeah, it was weird. There's so much forum speculation and misinformation about that. How basically, I don't want to get into the business side of the merger, but Enix did not ruin Final Fantasy X with the FF10-2. Square fans blaming Enix for what Square did in the 2000s is ludicrous.
That's ridiculous.
And weirdly, the shareholders for Enix got a better return than the shareholders for Square. So it was a merger with Enix sort of getting the better end of the deal. It was if you had to call one an acquisition, it would be Enix acquiring Square, even though
because Square lost tons of money on Spirits Within.
Yeah, Spirits Within and I think one or two other game projects, but mostly Spirits Within. The thing is, this game does a few interesting things with gameplay, and it wants to revisit Final Fantasy X because that's a popular game, and I don't have a problem with that either. But the problem is they do so in such an empty way. I don't mind an RPG that's overburdened with optional side quests, but to make these side quests so uninteresting and to lock major story content behind 100% completion is a little offensive to me. I'm a moderate fan I'm a casual fan of FF10. I think it's good, but I'm not super interested in diving deep into the lore of it. If I was an FF10 super fan and I had to get 100% on this thing to get the scene I wanted, and I missed one Crimson Sphere, I would just be furious. And it's opaque game design that is not like opaque game design in Dark Souls rewards players exploring more and rewards patience and is a game of information. It's sort of like players have to learn their way through the game for success.
Yeah. Dark Souls is a community effort in a lot of ways.
Yeah, exactly. Final Fantasy X-2 punishes players for making for overlooking extremely easy things like not talking to one NPC in one town that you don't have to visit in Chapter 1. Yeah. And that's I don't like anything about that. So Final Fantasy X-2, I'm playing it for the job system and to keep my perfect record of beating all of the Retro Encounter games in 2020 so far.
There you go. I will say, getting the true ending, the 100% ending, is really just an extra scene tacked on to the good ending, which is a lot more doable. I think my first playthrough back in ye olden days, I was a 56% completion. Talk to Macon every opportunity you get. There's a certain scene where you have to press X to whistle. Do that a bunch of times. And then
I think I already missed that, but I don't give a damn as long as you don't miss any Dresspheres.
Was it the point where you fell into the far plane?
No, I didn't fall into the far plane.
Okay, then you haven't missed it yet. You'll be just control. It'll be just Yuna. The others won't be there.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, very end, after final boss, you will be given a choice to make, and that determine if you fulfill the prerequisites of talking to Macon enough times, and whistling in Chapter 3. Again, it is still a little opaque. I'm totally not saying it isn't, but that's how you get the good ending, which is more or less the same as the 100% ending, minus one extra scene.
This does not make me any more lenient on the bad design decisions in this game.
I don't think it's a good design decision. I don't even really like the good ending, but I'm just saying.
And I'm just saying, I think we're done talking about Final Fantasy X-2 for today. I like parts of this game and find other parts very frustrating. But Eva, you and I are both new players to this. And are you around the same part as I am? Maybe early-ish Chapter 3, maybe a little further ahead than me?
Oh, no, I'm in end of Chapter 2.
Okay,
I'm actually a little bit behind.
Sorry if I spoiled the Bahamut fight for you then. It's not hard.
I do not care.
That's the right attitude. But do you have any expectations or ideas for what may happen in the second half?
No. I'm just I play games through, I've played a few dozen games this year to completion. I've only dropped one, so this is not going to be drop number 2 for me because I'm playing it for the podcast and that's cool. I just want eternal happiness for Yuna. I don't really care what happens to the other characters. That's about it.
I enjoy Payne's stoicism and her first unwillingness to do a Charlie's Angels pose with Yuna and Riku, and then a sort of reluctant cool girl pose with them from then on. That's a moment.
-4 respect points, Riku. That scene is funny. I like it.
Yeah, and oh man, we're talking about scenes with bad dialogue. How about every word that Brother says?
I cannot stand Brother, and it is even worse because he and Yuna are cousins.
Oh, what? Yeah. Oh, and
remember, she and Riku are related.
Yes, and which makes the hot spring scene even worse.
Where she's feeling her up.
Yeah,
we'll
talk. I think in the next episode we'll talk more about how there are a heck of a lot of men working on this game, and
there is some questionable ass fan service.
Yes.
But I do before we go, I do want to leave a parting thought, because Mike mentioned Brother and mentioned Buddy, but he did not mention the most important character on the Celsius, which is Shinra.
No, I mentioned Shinra, the jerk little kid that's a know-it-all that I definitely have to play rounds of Sphere Break again if I want the next job Dressphere.
But did you know that the developers named him Shinra because in their heads, Shinra would eventually grow up to build rockets into space, colonize another planet, and form the Shinra Corporation.
Peter, I just hate
making Final.
Yes,
I Yeah, I am aware of the theory of Final Fantasy X as a mega prequel to Final Fantasy VII.
I'm just saying,
and
if they have the same writer on the 7 remake, I'm expecting my lore dump.
And I'm just saying we're really done talking about Final Fantasy X-2 now. But we aren't actually done, because next week we're doing another episode on Final Fantasy X-2. Hopefully Eva and I have not given ourselves concussions banging our heads against the walls of our homes.
Oh, it could be worse. It could be worse. Titus could kick a blitzball and explode the spin-off novel. Anyway.
So, right, next week we're going to finish off the Final Fantasy X-2 discussion. Hopefully Eva and I do not end our respective personal streaks of completing games. I've abandoned multiple games in 2020, but none for the podcast. I always fail to finish at least one podcast game in a calendar year. If I were to go over all the games I've been on episodes of, I can find at least one that I've fission mailed on, but that hasn't happened yet in 2020. So hopefully I can finish off the year doing that, and that would entail finishing Final Fantasy X-2 in the next week, and also finishing Bastion, Transistor, and Pyre before mid-September, because later this year we're doing 3 episodes dedicated to Supergiant games: 2011's Bastion, 2014's Transistor, and 2017's Pyre. Each of those getting a dedicated episode in December. Also in December is the 25th anniversary of the Tales of series. Peter, you got to play one of those eventually.
I have Vesperia Definitive Edition. It is lined up.
Mm-hmm. Perfect choice to start. Eva, have you played much Tales of? We've probably had this discussion and I just forgot.
And I have not played a single minute of a Tales game either.
All right, so I am all of the Tales experience on this episode, but when we record that episode in December, there will be 3 other Tales of fans and I engaging in a Tales of fantasy sports draft, where we're going to have a similar gimmick to what we did last year for Final Fantasy, but with Tales of in honor of the 25th anniversary of Tales of Fantasia. So and you know what, I can mention the January game too, because we voted on it months ago. In January, we're doing 2 episodes on Batan Kaitos, but the rest of the month is not quite planned out. But if you want to email us or just get in contact with us and suggest future games for the podcast or future topics or what have you, the best way to do so is to email retro@rpgfan.com. You can also visit rpgfan.com's message boards, or our Facebook page, or Instagram, or Twitter, or Discord server, or Twitch channel. There's something streaming on Twitch nearly every day. There's also 3 other podcasts on RPG Fan: Random Encounter about randomness, Rhythm Encounter about RPG music, and Phoenix Edge, which is also a weekly podcast mostly focused on current events. You can review any of those 3 or Retro Encounter on iTunes or Google Play or whatever podcast listening venue you prefer. Please leave feedback. I prefer positive feedback, but as long as it's constructive, I'll take whatever we can get. That really skeezy Facebook status that they phased out a couple of years ago. But speaking of social media, let's tell the listeners where they can find each of us, starting with you, Eva.
So you can find me on RPG Fans Twitter and Facebook, and you can also find me on my personals as @EvaLease on Discord, Instagram, and Twitter.
All right, and Peter.
You can email me, peterT@rpgfan.com, or @IHaveFury on Twitter.
And as for me, you can find me on Twitter most easily. I'm @TheRealMonsoon most of the time, @Evoker4Dogs other times. I am also Monsoon Mike on RPG Fans Discord. I also have an RPG email that is Sollosi@rpgfan.com, but I rarely check it, and it's full of spam from the 1 or 2 E3 email lists I filled out 4 years ago. That email is a mess. Find me on Twitter. It's much easier. But you can find us next week with more Final Fantasy X-2. For now, thank you, good night, and good luck.
EMP.
I liked Electromagnetic Pulse more than Masters in Professional Engineering.